my name's Benedict for Higher Hertz. In this episode, or this video, we're looking at bedroom producer Blog's Dirty Filter. It was released a year or so ago, and I was actually sent over to have a look at their saturation unit, which I will do next. But when I was there, I discovered this, and I think I've seen it before, and I sort of probably bypassed it, thinking, oh yeah, I don't need another filter. And this time I stopped and had a little bit more of a look at it and realized that they actually have a unique selling feature on this. There's something in the way that it does it. It's not that nobody else does it, but they've put something together that was potentially interesting. Tried it out and it's like, this is quite cool. And as you'll see, was a little hard to duplicate elsewhere. Therefore, it's like, is it worth having? I think yes. If this is the sort of thing that you're going to get use of, it is. A little bit of housekeeping, tiny bit of soft tube saturation knob across the masters as is normal, and reverb courtesy of Hertz Delay, which is also free, and you can get this fine fellow by following the appropriate linkage on higherhertz.com. So looking here, we have a piece. But we really can't call it very well mixed. Yes, things are balanced, we can sort of hear what's going on, but there's no sort of finesse or positioning or anything done on the sound. So let's turn it on. So you'll hear that the mix now is significantly better, not because the sounds are cooler, but because we've given each sound a useful character that allows them to position themselves in the mix, plus also move, because a lot of the sounds were quite static. So all in. Out. I know a lot of people look at effects and processors going as like, how can I make my sounds more cool, man? I don't look at them that way. I look at it as like, how can I use this, or can I use this to help me improve the story that's being told? So that's the approach that I always encourage in anyone, and how I've used them here, which we will walk through in the second half of the video. So Bedroom Producer Blog, it's entirely possible that you know who they are already. They are a blog site that gives news, a little bit more focused or a little bit less everything all the time everywhere than KVR, and they actually started to do a couple of their own plugins. Yes, I will admit they were kind to us with the release of Hertz Delay, and brought us a certain amount of attention for that. But as I said, I was over there looking at their saturation unit because I was asked to, and also picked up some other things which may get reviews in the next few programs. Saw this and thought, yeah, that's actually rather cool once you understand what it does that's different. It's not really a filter unit in the sense of, oh look, here's just yet another Moog filter. It will do that. But what it's really designed to do is to change the sonic profile of your sound. And you might go, yeah, but that's an EQ. Yeah, but this is like an active dirty EQ in the way that I am using it. So that makes it kind of interesting. It is free. Finding this particular article is on their site's a little tricky. They're getting a little bit in how to navigate, clearly. They've still got a lot of old articles as though they represent everything on their site, which is a shame, I think, for the amount of content that they have. To get back to this article, I used the search button top right-hand side of their site, and found this. Otherwise, if you go to downloads, if you're not interested in reading any of this because you know it all, because I've told you everything you need to know, then you can just go to downloads, scroll down, and do the download thing. It comes as VST2. I'm pretty sure it came as a VST3 as well. I can't remember, but I'd never bother installing VST3. That's for the weak. VST2, man. I just don't bother because I can't use them yet. So just joking there. So interesting product. We might as well scoot into the good and bad, and then, as I say, we will dig into the actual product. I'll leave this over here. Good. It's simple. Sometimes I find that to be a real problem, and there are some times where I feel like, oh, it might have been nicer to have a couple more controls, but it's simple, and for what I've used it for, I think it does the job very, very nicely, even without those extra controls. If you accept it the way it is, it's rather good. It's got a cool sound. I mean, in many ways, the last thing the world needs is yet another tube plug-in coupled to filters, but it does sound good, and part of that is because of that unique approach, its selling feature. And it's actually kind of fun. If you use it in the wrong situation, you're just going to go, this is horrid. Fair enough. It's the wrong situation. If you think it's horrifying what you'll mix, you're just going the wrong direction. You're looking for the wrong thing, or maybe you don't even know what it is you're trying to do to make that sound or that part fit in the mix, and you're just randomly pulling in plugins. But it's when you're in the right place, it's pretty fun to use. I think the simple uncluttered GUI helps with that. To be fair, we've got to have some sort of negative, and I think that, yes, we could use a few more buttons or knobs, and primarily being able to offset or in some way separate the drive and resonance, which we'll explain in a moment once we get into features. But overall, for the price, if it's a kind of thing that you understand how to use for the way it's designed, I think it's actually pretty darn cool. So we're not going to bitch about anything. That's done. Let's look at its features. So across the top, like this one's in action, just keep it on the drums, so forgive me whilst I pull that up. Remember, we've got our reverb working just to make it a little nicer to listen to and to feel like an actual mix. We've got the ability to mix, so you can parallel if you so desire. I do not desire, and I know that offends some, but I just don't play that way. You may play that way if you like. I am never stopping anyone from doing it. I'm just saying I prefer not to, and I don't encourage people to rush into the half and half, because I think, see if you can get the right sound by being 100%, being committed, you know, all the way over the fence, waving your spear at the bull before you decide to sit on the fence. That's my answer to you. We've then got this drive in the middle from 0 to ew. Let's just put that back wherever it was. Then these pair of filters. There's a high pass filter and a low pass filter with roll-off slope control, which, interestingly enough, aren't necessarily as dramatic as we might think. Maybe with higher settings they will be more dramatic. I didn't necessarily find it, but there's nothing against them. I think the 12 dB actually is probably the nicest of them. Exactly what model they are, don't know, don't actually care. And you might notice there are no resonance knobs. Like, where's my resonance knobs? This was mentioned in the bad. What happens is that the drive amount sets not only the distortion amount knob, but it also sets the resonance. So you notice it becomes more peaky. And that's both a weakness if you don't understand it, or its strength if you do understand it. Yes, it would be nice to be able to have either those knobs separated, but my personal preference in the situation would be leave them tied the way they are, and then just update with a little resonance offset knob sitting here and here kind of thing, and allow us to then either add or subtract to the amount that your system has added. So if I'm going, yeah, look, I want the drive, but I don't want all of that peak that you've added through the resonance here, then I can offset. it's it's not vital, and nor do I know whether you even have ever intended to update this. It's free, so kind of why would you? But if you were, those to me would be the things that would transition it to being a significantly better device, assuming you wanted my input on that at all, but I'm a reviewer, so it's my job to make input. So that's our main controls, and then it says volume, which technically wrong, boys, but good enough. This is an output offset, plus or minus 12 dB. They make no attempt on board to actually balance levels, but obviously the more you drive, the more you'll create problems on your output. So you can balance your inputs and outputs a little bit more with the level offset, the output level. Pretty simple. So if we were just looking for a straight filter on a synth, yeah, we can do that. Without a resonance control, want resonance, we're going to get drive with it. But hear how this really picks out frequencies. That sort of chooses how we do it. The 12 dB sort of has the broadest peak. And this is when this becomes interesting. So we take our drums, let's just move this so we can A-B, which, let's see here, they have a lot going on down here. I know people will go, oh, but that's great, there's so much sub from the kick drum, but good luck getting that to play anywhere. In which case, as a mix engineer, one of my first jobs would be to say, well, okay, if this is a rock song, pop song, whatever, it's not bass music designed to only work on a 24-inch sub, then we need to make those drums more listenable. We need to get them up into the mix area and out of the sub and air areas. So we need to tighten them up. In which case, we'd bring this in. So let's use this, and you can see here, let's accentuate. You can see the tone. The tone has to be there in your raw audio, but you can see the tones that we are, in essence, doing this to. So this high-pass filter is essentially, with its resonance, scanning like this. So if we wanted to know what it looked like, it would be like the pair of these together. I can't drag these together without doing some slightly complex work, which is not necessarily, hopefully, but it's like we're scanning that up and down, and that resonance forms the peak. And see where it's got a fair amount of energy at 40 hertz. Yes, I know it's distorted. That's not really very good for a mix. Anything below 50, 60, that's not what you want to be feeding to people. Let it work itself out, but don't go, that's where my mix lives, that's you know, I've got to, because you're going to have a lot of problems. It won't translate. I was speaking to someone yesterday who does make bass music, and he was saying, oh, but when I played my my track on the sound system at work, which from what I could gather was close to a boombox with speakers put up in the corner, which is normal enough. We've probably all been to 40,000 shops where you've got equivalent of, you know, these plastic tubs sitting somewhere up in the corners of the roof, and he felt like, but everything was missing. All my bass was gone. It was just like, well, you're making bass music, which requires that 24-inch sub with a 20,000 watt amplifier to be able to be audible, and B, you're not doing the work to lift the way that speaks. And what we're doing here is lifting how and where it speaks. If we're kinder with our peak, See? We've suddenly made that kick, what people will say tighter, we've lifted it. So we've taken its peak, which was below the usable line, and we've now lifted it up into the punch area. And that's pretty cool. It's added a little bit of drive, so it's sparked it up. And the other side of this is if we want to give it a little bit of splash, we can use that drive and that little bit of thing, which is happening obviously on this end of things, to create a peak. And that's there. It also has the advantage of whatever is above that peak is being rolled off, which is brilliant when processing drums, bass, most instruments, because we want to get them out of the air frequency. And I know some of you be, but those hi-hats, they need to dominate the air, man. Okay, you're mixed, dude. But if we've got a singer, we want them to rise into the air. If we've got some nice, sweet strings, we want them to rise into the air. We might be rolling off some of the uppers on those strings, but we want them to be able to rise into the air. And if you filled the air and dominated the air with hi-hats that are then you're suddenly going to find that you can't balance anything. You've got these hi-hats, these drums that dominate everything, and you won't be able to balance, and then people will be saying, oh, you've got to cut out, and this, that, and the other, and your mix will get weirder and weirder as you try to solve the problem that you created in the first place. So in this case, we don't have anything else to compete as such, so the drums can be pretty dominant here, but we've moved this see, we've moved it down, which means just like we moved our sub-frequencies up into the, generally listenable range, we've pulled our high air frequencies down into the generally listenable range. That's a win, because if we focus all our energy up here and say, oh, I'm going to add, 48 dB of 20K, not only will our mix sound super thin and papery, but when we come to play that on a boombox in a shop, we're going to be like, there's no hi-hats, the mix sounds dull and lifeless and whatever, and it's like, yeah, because you've got your mixable area and then your what you should let happen area, and we've emptied everything out of our mixable area and concentrated on the unworkable areas. So the charm with this plugin is it gives you some of the drivey fun of tubes. What sort of tubey emulation this is, I don't know or care, but it's that combination of creating a now punchier mix. So you see that we've lifted here, dropped here, and moved it into the workable range. Good mixing practice. So that's our bass, and that's our features. Now our bass. Come here. The programming this was a little on the thoughtless side. The person didn't really think about what's it going to be like over time. They've just listened to the notes and what have you and gone, oh, yep, that's good. So it ends up sounding MIDI because there's no movement. So I've added movement with the wonders of CV control in Reason, and there would be some similar modulation system in whatever DAW you have cursed yourself to use. So apply that. We'll show you how the sound is set up. We'll pop that out of the way for the moment. Again, there's quite a bit of energy down here, which is not really serving our purpose as much. And notice how as we raise, for a certain way, the bass actually gets better. It may not have as many sub frequencies there, but it gets punchier and it appears to fill out and get thicker. That's because we are doing every skilled mix engineer's trick of doing the right job and moving the emphasis from here to first or second harmonic. So if our bass is on, say, C, and we put a peak on C+1, so one octave up, then our bass, we can roll off some of this, as in play less of the fundamental, and with a little bit more of this, people will feel the fundamental, meaning that it feels perfect to them, and your bass will sound richer overall. That's what we're doing here. On the other end, this is fighting it a little bit because it's got control externally. We could automate this, but because I've used... And so that allows us to shape our top end, which is otherwise too bright. Subtractor's a great synth, but it just keeps going right the way up there. And this allows us to smooth that off, hey? And adding that little bit of from the tubey thing. If we're to put back in our modulation, we've now got movement. Big mistake. The reason that synth initially sounded MIDI was too much top end and lack of movement. It didn't change any. And I know that's inevitable when you've got 4 bars of music or whatever, but this is what we're going to do. We've now got our drum and our bass working together, particularly our kick and our bass are working together. The bass, the high end of the bass is no longer interfering with the high of the drum kit. So it's tighter, much tighter. And you know what? There hasn't been a single bit of compressor applied. Yes, there's probably some compression happening from the tubey stuff, the distortion stuff, but there's no compression required here. We could look at compressing the pair of them together, but that would be for one of my compression videos. Go look at them. I've just done some recently. But you see how we've done this massive improvement by just pulling things into the mixable range and therefore giving ourselves far better focus and a nicer tone and a more interesting tone overall than something that sounds kind of flat and MIDI. And then finally we've got our string. It's a nice sound, but again it's on the lifeless side. So its lifelessness actually kind of undoes some of the coolth of what's there. Now, I'll be honest and say that this is probably a little overdone, but I want to show you what can be achieved. So we've got our both high and low pass filters automated. Just a different slope. Again, a little bit of drive. Too much gets a little too interesting. Balanced our levels. There isn't a lot of difference here in the spectrum. Introduced some of the lows at times, just with a high-pass filter, but there wasn't a major need, but we have narrowed that sound down nonetheless. So it's got far more of a focus in the mids, and our drums we've pushed together, but we've also boosted. So we've got a little bit of a smiley face happening. Therefore, we've got some space in the low mids for our bass to be doing that kind of a thing, and in the mid to high mids for our string to be doing its thing, or our pad to be doing its thing. So where it tries to sort of take over the whole world, obscuring these, it now feels like it's focused in. Now you may well say to me, oh, but I don't like that weird phasey sound, and it doesn't sound like a nice sweet string anymore. Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. And in which case, you might consider this not being the perfect solution for you. But my point here was to show how we can take a pretty flat, well, not super working mix, and improve it dramatically just using the one device. So we're not having to fuss around with lots and lots of other devices to try to, do 47 things to achieve one outcome. We've achieved that outcome straight away. With one device. I like that. That fits my approach of, if I can have one device that does quite a few things, or one device that solves quite a few problems in one go, it's a winner. Will I use this an awful lot? Time will tell. I have other ways of doing these things, but it's definitely worth a look. Definitely worth a look, and it's a thing that I will remember. Let's look at answering the will I use it and I have other things. So if we've got our drums, this is using a couple of Reason devices. So it's using the sweeper, which came in version 11, I think, but fundamentally the same sort of architecture. I don't know where they put their drive, whether it's in the middle or whether it's after or whatever. This has got a little bit of drive on the way in, but I've de-emphasized it. I've had to guess, and so manually set up the points, and the filters just don't sound and feel the same. And then, of course, added the tube here. Again, this drive doesn't sound and feel the same. It's obviously the sound that I'm very used to. And if I set out to do this in Reason, I would say I've achieved my job because I've reduced and moved this up here. But overall, we might sort of say it's a little trashy and papery. Now, we might then go using filters or EQ. Let's just tidy that up. Because I think often devices like this may have EQs built into them that we don't see, that are automatically disappearing certain frequencies. I'm just guessing, I'm not accusing, but that could explain the massive apparent difference between VST type sounds and Reason sounds, because Reason is just brutally honest. It's like the NS10 of DAWs. It's just, that's going to be there. It's up to you to decide what you want to do with this. So we can get a nice cut tight sound from that, or there is just this. So the efficiency of this, if we look at our spectrum profile here, you can see that this has all stayed in here, or even been amplified. So it's just very different sonic profiles. No right or wrong. Every device is entitled to have its profile. But the dirty filter definitely is different from what's already here, and I think that's quite cool. If you already have something that sort of does this in your arsenal, you may find it less important, but I don't think you're going to have a one device that ties drive and resonance together the way this does. It's not that you can't build it, as you've seen I have, and I could put knobs on it and what have you and have Benedict's version of Dirty Filter, but it's not going to sound the same. So that means it's got its own unique sound. Like I said, it's simple with a cool sound and is quite fun. So hard to duplicate, and bearing in mind there's no cost, why would I spend time trying to duplicate it? Other than for my own learning, which I'm highly likely to do, because somewhere down the track, if I want to get some of that, but I don't want to use that for whatever reason, then it allows me to draw on that learning. So final words are that I think that, really, as I've just said, it's a very nice device that's pretty focused. It's very much got a particular sound or sound result because of tying drive and resonance together. That could be overcome if there was an offset for the resonance here. Not a separate resonant knob as I suggested before, but I think just an offset for whatever is being done here. So that way I can emphasize or de-emphasize the decision that's already been made by the process, by the algorithm. I think that would change this quite a lot in a positive way, but it's up to them whether they're looking at upgrades or not. But bottom line as it is, I think that it's actually a really cool tool, especially for those who are looking to understand that how to mix in the middle, how to learn this is my mixing area, and I don't meddle out there. I let it be what it is once I've mixed the middle properly. Then it makes a pretty cool, okay, I'll use this one till I'm getting the right feel, I use this one till I'm getting the right feel. And then you've got, I wouldn't say all the way there, because I doubt that I would use this 100% as the only thing I was doing in the mix, but I'd be better there. So when it comes down to doing the, the mix EQ thing, so it's like if I'm going through and going, okay, I'm going to do my mix EQ now, then it's going to be much easier, because I'm closer to the sound I wanted. So a little from here, a little from there, really, really nice. So I think it's a cool tool that you need to understand its algorithm and how it works, its relationship to itself, because it is different. But once you understand that and use it to pull things into the middle, then I think it's a nice, not one knob, but one device that does several things at once in a pretty cool kind of a way. So rather than struggling with 3 devices perhaps, or 4 devices to try to start to get your core sound, you could well just be using the one. And why not use it on every track? Because it's not where you're necessarily going to end by the time you've done all your mixes and everything. Well, I hope you found this instructive, whether you plan on using the device or not. I hope you found it instructive as this is what I want to be doing with my mixes, because that's the productive way. If you have any questions, not support questions for the product, because that's for a Bedroom Producer blog, but about the process or just positive feedback about the program that we do for you, please hit the subscribe button. That tells YouTube that you value us, and of course some nice words, because that tells us that you value us. Don't forget higherhertz.com, and you can get the Hertz delay over there as well if that appeals to you. It's a pretty cool device, I gotta say. There's a big video on it if you're sort of like, oh, I want to understand it before I go committing time to it. go watch the video. And otherwise, the most important thing, have a great day.